Anyways, today this is about you and about the 4 Hour Chef. So the big question I have, why cooking? Because those of us in the cooking world are big fans of yours and have been for a while, from 4 hour work week to the 4 hour body. But when you started tackling food, we're like, all right, he's one of us. What prompted you to dive so deep into this?
Cooking, cooking. So cooking was the one skill that had kicked my ass repeatedly over the years, and that I failed at. And I think that's something that doesn't really get highlighted enough from my standpoint to my readers, is that there are things that beat me and have beaten me, and I'm not able to, magically wave a wand and do everything.
Sure.
But my readers had also been asking me for something like the 4 Hour Expert or the 4 Hour Mind, a book on accelerated learning for the last 5 years, because of all the writing that I did on learning languages in 8 to 12 weeks and sports deconstruction and all that type of thing. The problem was I didn't have an interesting context to teach all those techniques and principles and everything. So the 4 Hour Chef came about. I really wanted to use my hands more, and woodworking was what I targeted first, but it ended up being too inconvenient and too problematic. And I finally looked at my bookshelf, and my girlfriend was also is an amazing cook. And I looked at my bookshelf, all these cookbooks I'd never used, because I cracked them open, then tried it once and got overwhelmed. And I said, you know what? I should take that skill and let my readers follow me from start to finish, trying to tackle it over the span of like a year.
Okay.
In doing so, teach all of the tools that I've learned about accelerated learning, and also interview people who are chess prodigies, professional athletes, obviously pro chefs,
right,
and world-class experts in all these different areas to gather their tips and tricks to teach throughout the book. So it's really a cookbook for by cookbooks, which certainly was me not long ago. And that's pretty much it. I think that for people who want to develop the basic repertoire of cooking from that's very technique based, I think it'll be a fun read, and it's irreverent. It's got it has Calvin and Hobbes cartoons. It has Victoria's Secret models giving their recipes. It's all the ridiculous stuff that I do to try to keep it fun and very light.
Yeah.
But then for people who have no interest in cooking, who want to learn how to learn languages, shoot basketball 3-pointers, marksmanship, whatever, it's also just a fun story. I think. So that's how it came about. Number one, I never thought I was going to be a writer. And number two, never thought I was ever going to cook anything ever, let alone now there's this 4 Hour Chef. So go figure.
Well, we love it. We kind of joked that it was probably because you got so much grief about your egg cooking video.
Yeah. When people, for those who haven't seen it, the 3-minute slow carb breakfast with cooking microwave, not eggs, but liquid egg whites in a plastic container. One of the most popular videos, but also one I got the most flack for.
Sure.
So I can very easily, the good news is I can very easily point to a lot of evidence that I was a very, very completely incapable.
Right.
Cook. So that's it's easy to point out that I really was starting from ground zero.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, when I saw that video, that's when, we kind of first had met online. That's when I shot those cooking videos to say, oh, Tim, you're killing me. Okay, no more cooking liquid egg whites. Let's do this for real. No, it's good. And it fits right in because you are known kind of as that, that analytical life hacker, mind learning accelerator, how to do better. And cooking, thankfully it's become such a spectator sport. So it's become, more in the conversation in the mainstream, but people are really wanting to know how to cook, which, we love. And, you're going to open up a whole new audience. So question I have for you with cooking, what's been the biggest surprise for you where you went, holy crap, I thought that was going to be easier than it was, or I never knew it was so difficult, or there had to be something in there that you went, holy crap, I never would have known.
Oh, there's so many. There are hundreds. I'll give you two. I'll give you a wow, I can't believe that can be so simple.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you a wow, I can't believe that could be so hard.
Okay, fair enough.
So what's been amazing to me more than almost anything else, and I'll just leave it at that, is that I now can find diced vegetables as almost a meditation. It's very relaxing to me.
Yeah, very therapeutic.
And that was what kept me away from cooking for a long time, is the knife skills. I just couldn't nail the knife skills. And The choices were basically, an encyclopedia of knife skills, which is just overwhelming, and I didn't know where to start, or the technique not being clear enough, so then I would catch my fingernail and freak myself out, or cut my finger and freak myself out, and it's and I would quit. So just realizing that, for instance, the grip on the knife is actually, you're choking up on the blade, you're holding it actually a lot like a golf club for a lot of the same reasons, and going over just some very basic progressions after sort of simulating all of it, you can get somebody reasonably comfortable with a knife in an afternoon. It's not that hard.
Yep.
And that blew me away. That totally blew my mind, that it could be so easy, but it could also be so overwhelming. You just had to distill it down like a fine whiskey.
Well, two things to that. In the classic old way, it's not done so much anymore, but in the old apprenticeship ways, when you first came into a kitchen, that's exactly what you did. The chef, had you peel potatoes, dice onions, peel carrots, and that's how you got your skills and your organizations up. But you're right, the knife skills, and I still use those today. Most chefs do. I mean, we all have jokes about when we were first learning or those first mentors, but it's so crucial that it carries with you your whole career.
Yeah,
okay.
And it's just so much fun to be able to use a knife properly. And it's a very manual, primitive, tactile experience in a world where, at least for me, part of the reason that I got really excited about cooking when I started to make progress was most people don't make things.
No, they don't. They assemble.
You sort of hack out a keyboard and then you close it and you're like, what the hell did I do today?
Yeah.
Even if you actually accomplished a lot, there's nothing tangible from all that effort. So being able to take a big mass of edge stools and turn it into something beautiful and usable is extremely gratifying. The one that was really hard for me is I did a couple of trails and very short-term sort of staging type stuff in restaurants, and prepping food, sorting microgreens it's like the biggest nightmare I could ever imagined. They're so fast, and I remember I was at River Park Restaurant in New York City, which is great. I mean, they have this huge urban outdoor farm, and it's awesome. And I had to sort microgreens, and I was so slow. I couldn't get accuracy and speed. And you see pro chefs, what really amazed me about really good chefs and cooks is the organization and process.
Right.
I mean, they're very much like computer engineers. Like, they have their process, they have their mise en place, and just the organization and the cleanliness was very interesting to me. So, for instance, one of the things that I started doing, and everybody has their own approach, but having in the cutting board, having on my top left the uncut objects, or maybe segmented out, then my workspace that's right in front of me, and then the things that have been cut up to the right.
Yeah.
Simply having a method so that it's not helter-skelter allows you to go 5 times faster.
Yep.
Or if you're cutting a bunch of onions, not going through all 5 or 6 steps with one onion and then doing the next 6 steps with the next, but taking an assembly line approach where it's like, okay, cut off the ends and then take off the outer skin, cut off the ends, take off the outer skin, and then you move to step 2 for all of them, then step 3 for all of them. Having a garbage bowl, basic stuff that a lot of home cooks don't even think about. And once you have your method down, it's just like shaving. Like, everybody shaves, well, men, shave, they sort of have their same process they follow each time.
Right.
If you had to reinvent it every time, you'd just never get anywhere. And that was really fascinating to me, to see what the algorithm is that the chefs use. And the most exciting thing to me was that you can train in the kitchen for everything outside of the kitchens.
Good point.
Yeah, so in Kitchen Confidential, Anthony Bourdain's book, which is a fun story, but he makes the point, and I highlighted this, is that one of his previous colleagues, exec chef, would walk up to his line cook's cutting boards, and he'd press his hand onto their cutting boards, and then he would go, "You see this? There's all the garbage and bits and pieces," and he'd say, "This is your brain right now. This is what your brain looks like."
Right.
And I think that's true. Once you get more organized in the kitchen and start to think systemically about certain things, that impacts everything else that you're doing. And that's the really cool part to me.
Well, you definitely got some good training. I'm smiling because so much of those of us in the culinary world have never quite heard it put that way. But you're right. There's a method, and there very much is that algorithmic thinking and process. So to hear you say much like an engineer, you're right. And it's funny because you're always self-correcting, meaning that how can I do it better? How can I do it faster? How can I do it more accurate? And that's just, built in, it's hardwired into our DNA as chefs. So that's why I think you see some who go into different, parts of the culinary world, or like what I'm doing with McCormick with all the digital and social. It's just, that's how we think. So it relates kind of in, Web 3.0 in the world we live in. So I love that description. My fans and followers are going to be excited to hear you've said it perfect, and you've been with some of the right people because you had all the right terms.
Yeah, I mean, and recipes and algorithms are the same thing. Like, algorithm sounds really intimidating. It's just a series of steps that has a predictable outcome. That's it. Recipe's the same thing. So, the real recipe per se of the 4-Hour Chef is this like meta learning process. It's the same thing. It's just this framework that you can impose on any skill so that you make more progress when you can acquire that skill in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. I can see now some of the culinary schools wanting to reach out to you to have you go speak to their classes. Never mind the Harvards of the world. We need to get you up into the premier cooking schools.
That'd be fun. I would enjoy it. I mean, at the very least, and of course, like I would never make the claim to be a master chef, but my goal isn't necessarily to get people to the master chef point, but it's to completely remove all of those common failure points.
Sure.
Prevent people from ever getting to like really good amateur status.
Right.
If I can remove all those, then a percentage of those people should be able to make it to the master chef. But the goal of the book is just to remove all those failure points, and among other things.
Well, that's a good segue right into our next thing. So each chef, his or her philosophy, cooking philosophy, if you will, is kind of the core of who they are and the type of food and the type of places they come out. So if you had to describe your cooking philosophy, what would it be?
My cooking philosophy. Well, there are a few. I'd say, as it relates to teaching, I would say early wins.
Yeah.
You need to allow people to have early wins and to have that positive feedback so they believe they can actually make good food. So that's I think a core of any skill. Yeah. But in terms of cooking, let's see, what's my philosophy? Simple is better, honestly, for me.
Isn't that amazing? And you're hanging out, and you've been with some of the best chefs in the country right now. And there's kind of that overreaching theme. It's exactly that, simplicity. Let the ingredients and the food speak for itself. Getting crazy with technique or plating or too many ingredients, it's kind of faddish, but simplicity.
Yeah, and what you find is, I think, if you think of like the most spectacular chefs out there who do amazingly complex stuff, like Grant Achatz at Alinea, right? His basis is all very clean, elegant technique. And I think a lot of people miss that. Like, if you look at Jean-Georges, you look at Thomas Keller, like, first and foremost, they are technicians. And they are really good at understanding ingredients and doing simple things well, first and foremost.
Right.
And then they build on top of that. But if you look at, let's say, the pea soup at, it may have been at Trio. I'm not sure if it's still at Alinea, but it's like 3 or 4 ingredients blended at 10,000 RPM on a Vitamix for like a half hour.
Right.
So it's a few steps done really, really well. And home cook can do that really, really easily.
Yeah.
And I also think that it's extremely easy to get overwhelmed and confused when you try to do 100 things at once. So for me, I'm like, look, start with a braise, right? And for instance, the way that I sequence some of the recipes in the book is the highest margin of safety, like a Warren Buffett approach to investing. But for each recipe, it's like, how badly can you screw this up and still get an awesome result? Right. The larger that margin of error, the margin of safety, the earlier in the book it appears. So it's like, you cook, let's say, even something like ossobuco, which people think is really complicated, and you forget about it for a half hour, you're fine. Like, it's totally fine. If you're shallow frying a fish and you forget it for a half hour,
that's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a big problem. So I'm not going to do that until much, much, much later.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and that same philosophy carries over into ingredients. You know, you're always looking for the freshest, the best, the highest quality, not necessarily the most expensive. But as you said, you know, I think farmers and the guys who are kind of doing it right, they're going to start becoming kind of our new rock stars of the culinary world because they're doing that same thing. You know, a few things done well, you know, simple steps to it. So that leads into my next question, which I got to ask about because it's been part of the 4 Hour Body for a while. Your Montreal steak from McCormick's Grill Mates.
One of my favorites.
We got to send that. We've got a whole care package from McCormick that we're going to send out to you. We want you cooking more and understanding the larger part of the line there.
Oh, I'm down. I'm totally down. Yeah, the Montreal rub is just it's one of those sort of fix-alls.
Yeah.
And I just you don't have to. Cooking can be so simple. Like for instance, this is the book. First copy I got. I have a one-pager in here that is, you know, when in doubt, add one of these 4 or 5 things. Like figure out a way to add one of these 4 or 5 things, and the Montreal steak rub is one of those, which can certainly be used on chicken. It can certainly be used on fish, and you know, acid. Right? Like when in doubt, add a little bit of lemon or white vinegar or something. Just dash, you know, try it out. Or when in doubt, like try ghee instead of butter, right? I mean, just like little things that make such a huge impact, and it takes 30 seconds to learn them. And the seasoning is a really fascinating aspect of it all for me, and a great place to start, I think, for people. So instead of having people, for instance, start with like chopping fresh basil and learning chiffonade and blah, 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 all these French terms, and oh my God, forget it. I'm done. I'm not going to cook. It's too much headache.
Right.
It's like, start with this spice blend or herb blend.
Oh, did I lose you there? Did you get power? Uh-oh.
Amen.
Okay.
Lost you there. I'm not sure what happened.
That's okay. So you had a great point you were making about your spice blend, and you had a good look on your face, by the way. I should snap that picture and send it to you. Pretty much, that's what it looked like.
So I'll pick up on the last sentence.
Yeah.
So one of my readers introduced me to tarragon on eggs.
Oh, yeah.
That was
wonderful. And that's a classic, too. That's classic French.
It's a revelation to me, and it was such an amazing combination and so simple. And overnight, literally overnight, it took something that I was sick of eating and made it interesting again.
Yeah.
And I've had readers who are like, I'm so sick of eggs, I'm so sick of beans, or whatever it is. And I'm like, well, try semi-pazote on your beans, which will also like cut down on gas potentially. Like, oh my God, amazing. Tarragon. It could be, basil, tomatoes, these really simple pairings that create just a quantum leap in flavor for people who are really intimidated by, let's say, the paradox of choice of having 1,000 options. I'm like, you know what? Time out. Just use this. Like, try, rosemary with lamb or whatever it might be, mint with lamb or rosemary with steak. Or it's really, it can be so easy, and and I think that I would really like to make 20 million people change, let's say, breakfast, and create a super trend where people have greater awareness of eating, and that will really impact the entire economy and agriculture and environment in the United States if that's done. So that's kind of the larger goal.
You hit on a key word, and that's something that we talk a lot about at McCormick, is that we're not an urban spice company, we're a flavor company. And that we're trying to, our mantra coming from our CEO, Alan Wilson, is how to save the world from boring food. So kind of a similar play what you're talking about in listening to you there is, there's ways to take just the simplest thing and take it to another level. And I love hearing your tarragon egg story because that's a classic combo. And you're right, it's kind of like tarragon on chicken salad. When people try it for the first time, they're like, I would have never thought of putting those two together. So I love that you're exposing a whole bunch of new people to flavor.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And I mean, even for instance, if people only took, let's say, an afternoon to experiment with new types of salt,
Yeah.
That's it. So instead of just the table salt, you get, say, Malden sea salt, maybe some kosher salt, and take your pick. Maybe some like pinkish Himalayan salt from Whole Foods, which has a really high sulfur type of taste, and experiment with how that changes not only taste but the texture a little bit.
Okay.
It really blew my. I mean, what blew my mind was the first time I had Malden sea salt on really good avocado, and then Malden sea salt on really good tomatoes, like Roma tomatoes.
Yeah.
Just so incredible. You know?
I love it.
Just love it, and it's easy. It's really easy. Or just getting high quality pepper. You know, things that people already know. Like get really good, like Telecherry peppercorns, and then freshly grind them in a good grinder, and boom, like totally different from the pepper you've had your entire life.
Yeah, we wish more people would be exposed to that instead of, what they've been used to before is just, the ground up. Sometimes, who knows how old it is in the spice cabinet. So I love you here mentioning some of the names. I was having a discussion with Alex a little bit about vanilla. I was sharing with him that, a lot of folks don't realize that process takes a year from the hand pollination that has to take place in only certain regions of the world, and then just the fermenting and the aging of the process of it. And he's like, wow, who knew vanilla was so complex? I was like, yes, that's part of what we're trying to teach folks. So I love that you're kind of spreading that message as well. So
it's so fascinating. I mean, when you realize, for instance, just how valuable some of these spices and herbs have been throughout history. I mean, the salt. Mm-hmm. So salary, the term salary comes from salt.
Salt, right. People were paid. Yeah, not worth his weight. Yeah, salt, exactly.
Well, I guess it was in Roman Empire, people were paid in salt. That's how they were paid their wages. And all of that, becoming just more fascinated and conscious of your food changes everything for me. So the book is really not about food per se. It's kind of like Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance in the sense that that's the vehicle that I use to teach a broader awareness and ability to learn, right?
Yep.
And what I would say is if you learn for even a week, you take time to start experimenting with different flavors, a couple of different cooking methods. If you never cook again for the rest of your life, it will still change how you experience food every time you have a meal for the rest of your life. And that is a huge return on investment.
Yep.
It's just, I mean, when I think of going out to eat before doing all the research for this book, it was really kind of black or white. It was like good or not good, or spicy or not spicy. That was kind of the extent.
Very basic,
hot or cold. That was the extent of it. And now I can pick out I can really see the cilantro hints here, and maybe if they added a little bit more acid, it would make this punch a little bit more. Or, wow, nasturtiums, I'm really glad they used this flour that way. And it's just where I'm able to see everything in high def. It's really just awesome. It is dramatically, by magnitudes of order, improved my ability to enjoy eating. And it's like, that's something you do, for the most part, 3 times a day until you die.
Right, yeah.
So,
well, I love your message that, and those of us in the culinary world, we love, it's kind of a dual-edged sword. We love the fact of all the prominence and notoriety and focus that's on food and cooking, but we want to take it to that next level. How do we transform the way we eat, process food, just dine in this country? So super excited about your book coming out. And that leads me to my last question, which is what's going to be success for you, Tim, on this book? I heard you mention, hey, if I can get 20 million people thinking about food differently, cooking a little more at home, getting in touch or getting more aware of the food and ingredients and flavors that they use, I don't want to read too much into it, so I'd love to hear from you yourself. What's going to be success on this?
Success for me is taking what I think can be a very overwhelming skill and get millions of people to believe with 100% confidence that they can do it and should do it.
Okay.
That is, learn the basics of cooking. Even if it's for a short period of time, just learn the basics of cooking and how that will translate to everything else. So empowering people to believe that they can tackle these skills that they've been intimidated by in the past or have quit in the past. And in doing so, the sort of side benefit of that is making people just aware of food, aware of eating. And it doesn't mean like I'm driving people to be vegans or paleo or whatever, just being more conscious of their food and their decisions related to food, because I think that'll have a huge impact on, for instance, the preservation of farmland.
Yeah, big issue.
For small producers. So a very high percentage, some people have said as high as 50% of the career farmers are going to be retiring in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
That land is going to be up for grabs. So is it going to be, a large industrial food corp? Is it going to be a strip mall? Is it going to be small scale independent farmers? Is it going to be A, B, C, D, or E? The awareness that the consumers have of food and the purchasing choices that they make will influence that.
Sure.
And I think that it has very far-ranging implications for the future of this country and the future of the world. I mean, certainly I don't want this to just be in the U.S. I don't want it to be just in English. But one thing at a time. So I'll tackle.
I love it. Well, Tim, I appreciate the time. I know you're super busy, and I promised Alex we'd keep it to about 45 minutes today. Anything else that you wanted to mention or get out to the group, to the team?
I would just say that there is elegance and simplicity.
Yeah, great words.
There is elegance and simplicity in choosing to pursue something really ambitious and fun, like cooking, with the fewest number of moving pieces in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I promise everyone who's listening to this or watching this that you can become world-class, which I will define as top 5% of the general population. You can become world-class in any skill, including cooking, within 6 months. No question, no doubt in my mind. I've tested it out on non-cooks, including myself. And that's true for learning Spanish, learning to dance, learning cooking. So just have the confidence that that is possible and strive for elegance and simplicity. That's what I would say.
That's awesome, man. Truer words. That's a great way to close this out. Well, Tim, I appreciate the time. The 4-Hour Body, now it's coming out. When is the release date? That's what everybody keeps asking me because I keep seeing the pre-release.
So the 4-Hour Body is out.
Okay. I'm sorry, 4-Hour Chef, excuse me, yeah.
There's a lot of 4-hour stuff going on with Tim Ferriss' name.
Yep.
So the 4-Hour Chef is coming out November 20th.
Okay, good.
And it's a really, I think, it's fantastic in both formats, print and digital, but I really worked for the physical experience to be optimized. So
Okay.
the print edition is gorgeous. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever produced.
Nice.
And it comes out November 20th, so just in time for the holidays. Teaches a lot of biochemical tricks for avoiding fat gain when you're eating enormous meals and whatnot. So it explores a lot of avenues, but it comes out November 20th.
Well, I'm excited because I've had a lot of good results with the 4-Hour Body when you released that a couple of years ago. So even more excited to see the 4-Hour Chef. And like I said, my friends and colleagues, who most of them you either see on TV or know their names from the culinary world, are super excited about this. So you're going to have a whole new legion of fans in the culinary world.
Well, I can't wait to meet them and learn from them. I'm still on my journey, but thanks for having me.
That'll be great. All right, Tim. I'll look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks again. I appreciate the time. And yeah, we'll catch up here soon on either coast. I'll reach out to, I guess, through you or Charlie or Alex would be best.
Yeah, I'd say Alex, or you could email me directly. I mean, if you're coming into town,
Yep.
the email can just these days can take a few days.
I figured. Yeah, well, that's great. Well, Tim, I appreciate it. I'm glad we finally got to get this time together. I know Brendan's been trying to get us together for a while, and I'm anxious to see the work that we did for you on the braising piece that we did for your editors.
Oh,
there.
yeah, on the basting.
Basting, excuse me, yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's in there.
I love it. All right, Tim. Well, thanks for your time. Hope Mom and Dad and the rest of the family are doing well back east, so our thoughts go out to them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, Tim. Take care. See ya.
Talk to you soon.